Welcome back, everyone, to the Word Traction Podcast. This is ordinarily the slot we hold our DEI Fridays episode, and this is about equity. This is the ICC, the International Criminal Court, standing up for integrity. You may have noted this week little Marco Rubio taking several shots at the ICC throughout the week, saying, this is a bunch of right-wing lunatics. They don't have jurisdiction over anybody in the United States. They have the temerity to suggest that war criminals in our own Defense Department could be subject to prosecution when we weren't signatories on all of the all the normal defensive things that a guilty man would say. Marco Rubio rolled out all of the oldies and played them over and over again and put them on wax so we can play them back to him. I'm not suggesting that he'll be number one on the ICC's hit parade should he or his family choose to travel to, I don't know, Paris or London sometime after he's done with his service in the Trump administration. There are I would imagine that Donald J. Trump himself, Stephen Miller, maybe, and certainly Pastor Pete Hegseth would be much higher on the ICC's list. And it's complicated with the U.S., as Donald Trump has also taken shots because he's hearing footsteps. And he sees that two of the main men, and they're all but one of those indicted under the ICC right now are men. But the the Oscar-winning performances for human trafficking, crimes against humanity, and genocide are, of course, Bibi Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin himself, the top of the proverbial crimes against humanity food chain, the butcher of Bucha. Not quite the butcher, but he's at least he was an assistant to the butcher of Bucha. And, truly horrible men that have done demonstrably horrible things, both in war and otherwise. Pastor Pete is newer to the game, but distinguished himself in truly magnificent form, ordering that those men, innocents or not, that were hanging onto a boat for dear life in the Caribbean were ordered executed by the chain of command that ends with Pastor Pete, unless somebody can create a through line to the Oval Office. In that case, that would be Donald J. Trump himself. But that's later for the investigators. The chief investigator, Kareem Khan, has been removed this afternoon after a vote. It was a rocky road and a long investigation. But what the alleged infractions, I will say alleged, they happened. He used his power as the lead prosecutor and had a sexual and a relationship sexual in nature with a subordinate, which in the old days was enough just to get you canned. And now in the Trump administration, you'll have a concerto of apologists saying that she was asking for it, and that's not illegal anymore because DJT, rapist in chief, said that ain't illegal, right? At least, if not in words and actions, and certainly in the depositions that Trump gave regarding the E. Jean Carroll trial, suggesting that victims like it, or perhaps were asking for it. You get the picture. You've experienced the entire Trump production and its grotesque glory. But this woman, unnamed, and will remain so on this podcast, this platform, because there's no value in adding her name to it. She was over the age of 18 and a fellow employee of the ICC. And he is initially accused um, of inappropriate workplace relationships, and that escalated over time to sexual assault in various forms and various allegations. And this woman was obligated to travel with Mr. Khan, uh, and so the assaults happened in various jurisdictions. There was a long investigation, and it was found that the ICC initially there was a investigation by a UN body who found that it was substantiated that there were inappropriate sexual relationships uh, 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 under Mr. Khan's leadership with this poor victim. Subsequently, there was a little bit of a few bumps in the road in this past year where the independent investigative body at the ICC themselves were suggesting that perhaps the allegations did not rise to the level warranting dismissal. But then the member states got involved, and that number is yes, it's 123 plus or minus. And they came back and said, no, this is not acceptable. And can you say that they came back with a harder line than they would have perhaps ordinarily done because of the particular environment we're in? That's fair because Trump breaks all norms. And we need to take every opportunity to, reset the playing field a little bit. But they came back and voted anonymous voting, requiring a majority finding that a fault on his part that would result in dismissal. A majority would have been 62 or 3 abstentions and all that kind of math. I'm not really clear on the ruling, but they came back 85 in favor of. So a clear majority, and he's out as of today. No grounds or avenues for appeal. He's out, and it's the right decision because as the ICC, it's so important. We've learned even more so under Donald J. Trump with his expectation that he can do anything he wants with impunity, the fault of his father and John Roberts and Sammy Samuelito, saying that you are a king, sir. You are divine and can do no wrong, and your shit don't stink. And of course, everything about Donald Trump has been stinking since I've been following him in the 70s. It's He's a repulsive human being. He has credible accusations of sexual assault, many convictions. It's indisputable. And then you layer in, oh, I don't know, little St. James Island, and perhaps not yet proven, but in the New Mexico plains, high desert plains in New Mexico. It's beyond dispute, and all of the obfuscation, which is part of a game plan by Todd Blanche, Pamela Joe Bondi before him, and every other Trump official that wants to obscure what these very real Epstein victims have shown and proven, even as they're being disrespected in public by Todd Blanche. They are braver than any member of the cabinet, any member of the senior military staff, any member of the Trump administration, past or present. These Epstein victims are standing up, and they're going to be heard. And if you think about it, the story from earlier in the week that one of the key facilitators and talent hunters for Jeffrey Epstein, was found dead in France 3 days ago or so. And he's not the first one. Guessing he won't be the last, but think about yourself in terms of being a woman, a verified victim of Epstein, of not a billionaire, as far as I know, and unable to afford the protection that the president has with the Secret Service and all of the nutcases and pizza delivery aficionados that these women are going to find themselves under increasing, not decreasing pressure as they step up in place of the man that should be doing it on their behalf, which is Todd Blanche. If he is, I understand he's a father, but I don't, it's not, his family is not my business. Neither is John Thune, the most handsome coward in Washington, has 6 grandchildren. I'm going to presume that some of them are women. And he's just laying down for Donald J. Trump and saying, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes. Mikey Mike Johnson, Grinder Mike, you could expect that from him because that's the kind of guy he is. And they're in the lower house for a reason. But in the Senate, we'd expect better. Although we learned a lot from the two senators from the Show Me state of Missouri. We saw in Liz Oyer's magnificent and brave testimony in front of the Senate as the former pardon attorney that she was. I apologize for even half smirking because she has endured actual threats against her life and she has young children. So it's not a laughing matter. What the absurdity is that John Thune himself is responsible, the leader of this august institution, could put a stop to all of that fucking behavior right now. He can't remove Donald J. Trump. He's probably too afraid to do that for whatever reason, pizza or otherwise. Fears for the life of his female grandchildren who must be saying, Poppy. I saw these women that were sexually abused by this Epstein guy that was a friend of a former friend of your buddy Donald Trump, President Trump. Why, Grandpa? Why does this happen? Who could let this happen to innocent young girls? Who would stand by and let them be abused? And then allow them to be mistreated and dehumanized again in the Senate. Why, Poppy? Why would that happen? Do you have to let them do that? The two senators from Missouri, do that the junior senator, Mr. Schmidt. Did you see what he said to Liz Oyer, who is a national hero? Did you hear all that, Poppy? Did you hear that? Why does that happen? Can you please tell us? Because all the kids in our social studies class or Bible class or whatever the fuck they do in the Dakotas are asking us every week, how can this go on? Isn't your dad the boss there? I mean, what is your father, John Thune, your handsome grandpa, allow this to happen? So questions that may never be answered depending on how John Thune goes out of the chambers, whether he stays in and goes out horizontally or vertically. Mitch McConnell, much the same question. He's going to be rolled in, rolled out one more time. We'll find out. Unless I missed something earlier today, I wasn't really paying attention. But let's get back on track with the ICC, and I'll wish you a beautiful Friday night. So in DEI Fridays, this is equity. Equity is fairness. it's a fancy word. It's perhaps a more lyrical word than fairness, but equity is just that. Equity is the opposite of equity is what has happened to the rights of black and brown people to vote in the United States, right? Inequitable behavior is Louisiana v. Calais, right? That is absolutely reprehensible behavior. And the senators that stand by and allow this to happen, that stand by and allow their brothers and sisters in the Senate to be threatened by a US president with physical harm to their own families, right? You can increase the security budgets of everybody, including the Supreme Court, which you did by millions of dollars. But the reason that the US taxpayer is funding, forced to fund because they weren't given a vote on the decision, the increased cost of security, the reason that those costs are astronomical is the failure in leadership in the Senate. And that's John Thune, one man, right? There's 99 others, but he is the majority leader, and he can put a stop to it and at least put the brakes on and say, I can make an executive decision here to put the brakes on this whole fucking embarrassment, and then let's sort it out in the midterms, right? All of the threats, not so veiled threats, actual black and white, good old fashioned Al Capone level threats by the president to interfere in elections, creating the fictions around the Chinese meddling and even the Iranian meddling, not mentioning the man that's really running the show, which is Vladimir Putin, the controller of Donald J. Trump since essentially since 2013. But John Thune is conveniently kind of turning a blind eye to all that because it's easier to go to work, go for your jog, have a delicious lunch in your private dining area, have cocktails in the fucking cloakroom or whatever they call it in the Senate, and just be white and delighted with yourself, and not actually show any leadership whatsoever. Not ideal, Senator Thune. Not ideal. So, yeah. So the ICC. So they're going to go through a process where they select a new lead prosecutor. That may take some time. That may actually run into next year. But the indictments, Netanyahu, Gallant, Vladimir Putin, the woman with the really silly name is the only woman indicted by the International Criminal Court currently under indictment, is one of Vladimir Putin's henchwomen, excuse me, who is responsible for the kidnapping of Ukrainian children, bringing them to Russia and putting them in Russian families and indoctrinating them into turning them into little Russians, which has overtones, undertones, and the smell of things that went on in the Third Reich. Right? But since it is, we're talking about Nazis, they are things that if we don't perform well and outperform in every area, turn out record and blow their socks off, then it's going to be 2 more years of worse than what we've seen so far. So do your voter reg. I just 10 minutes before I turned on the old camera, I received a good old fashioned in the old U.S. mail confirmation of my reconfirmation of voting status, which there was what was the glitch? Oh, and in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you can it can be open for the general, but you have to claim a party affiliation for the primaries. Whatever. They've been doing it in Massachusetts. They've been doing it longer than many. So I'm not going to dig down in the nitty gritty on that. But address correct, name correct, and all that. And they have me unaffiliated on the top line and Democrat, not Democratic, yeah, on the bottom line, and good to go on that. In the mail, not today because I've already checked, but in the next couple days, I renewed and updated my real ID. I double checked my passport, which is good through the general election in 28. And and I also ordered for what did I say? It was $21.80, something like that. A a certified copy of my birth certificate from Cuyahoga County in Ohio, Cleveland, because that's where I was spawned by a bunch of other Cleveland natives, dearly departed parents. And yeah, so I'm doing that because I talk so much fucking smack about doing your homework on voter ID stuff. I better do it myself, or I'm just another hypocritical fuck like every member of the Trump administration, almost every GOP member of the legislature, and the entire Supreme Court. So I'm going to be in a few days' time. I will have my checklist completed, and then that will allow me. I already know my better half. She's good. She of course can't get the birth certificate in her current name because that for women that goes away with a marriage or two or three or five. And to be fair, men can choose to change their name to their wives. Not so many examples of that in the U.S., but they should if that would bring joy to their betrothed. But I'm going to be writing that. I'm good. She has the other documentation that is sufficient, and I will be a pain in the ass, live and in person, to people that are my family members. Yes, I have some very young family members that just well, three of them in the last 4+ years aged into voting eligibility. So I will be a pain in their ass on that. Now I know all three of them for a fact have passports better stamped than mine um, in the correct birth name and neither none of them are married. So that's kind of settled. Got to get the youngin going, and then people in my community, many of which are even older than I am. And then, as I suggested in an earlier episode, you don't have to be people. Some people are very private, understandably, about the details of their party affiliation, their voting behavior, and that is expected. Can you, as a good neighbor, offer graciously and subtly to be of service? Right? You could open the conversation like, "Hey, you didn't happen to see that fucking asshole?" No, probably not a good opening. You could refer back to Donald J. Trump's delightful presentation last Thursday. That makes it clear for everybody. Speaking of making it clear, if you have not yet, the interview that was conducted by The Economist of Elon Elon effing Musk, he gave some statements that are not inconsistent with what many of us believe about Elon Musk, but he said it again in the particularly creepy and disturbing kind of way that it seems only Elon can do. And these are clippable in a way that I hope that anybody that is a shareholder in SpaceX or Tesla, both of which you've been taking a fucking beating, unless you were, as we talked about in the option market sense, they're the short interest. And I didn't check it today, but earlier this week, we spoke about it, and the short interest in SpaceX last Tuesday was maybe 32%, which is high. If you're not a biofarm company, that's high. And I didn't see what Tesla was, but Tesla in the market itself was taking an absolute beating today. I mean, appropriate for the guy. And Elon was just the interviewer. I'm blanking on her name. She's a woman with a lovely British accent and very blondish hair, and she's the one of the chiefs of the Economist. Said, are you anti-Muslim?" After a string of some other questions, and Elon, paused for an uncomfortable period of time, and then he started to say, "Oh no," he had said, "Well, one of my one of the wives of my children is half Indian." Okay. I don't know if that is Eastern Indian or Western indigenous tribe. I don't know, and I don't care in as much as that's a relationship with Elon Musk. But reportedly, this woman has given him 4 children, so we want them to be safe, healthy, and happy, which means get the fuck away from Elon Musk. But then after talking about using that as I guess he was trying to project his DEI credentials by saying that, hey, at least 4 times I had sex with a half brown person, you know, Elon, giving himself congratulations. He went into answering her question, it wasn't Islamophobe, are you anti Muslim? He said, well, that's a tough question. Let me think about that. Said, "Well, yeah, what I'm against is anybody that's a rapist or a murderer by, what he's saying by implication, because he didn't clarify it, is that Muslims are more likely than not to be either rapists or murderers." It sounds like Donald Trump with Mexicans, but said in a way that was even more creepy, if that's possible. And then he made some horrible word choices, non sequiturs, false equivalences, all the things that he does on a regular basis. But it was right there for you. If you were that 1% of the human population that is still on the fence about Elon, just go on whatever YouTube, or it's probably on Elon's own platform, unless he could scrub it, TikTok or otherwise, and just look at those clips. And there's that one, and one that was before that point the most horrifying thing I had seen on the interwebs today. But Elon never fails to disappoint in a magnificent way. So if you wait long enough, he's gonna stick a digit in his bunghole one more time just to show you how repulsive a human being he is. If he is, Neuralink, the questions will continue to be put forth. Is Elon actually a humanoid, or is he a Neuralink driven android something or other? Because it's his company. Is he effed up enough to offer himself up. I mean, he's doing it with dogs and cats and chimpanzees to probably horrible effect to test these promising medical developments. I joked a little bit about Christopher Reeve, who tragically, Reeves, excuse me, Superman, uh, the second generation Superman, fell off of a horse or was rolled by a horse or something to that effect. And that's going, God, that's got to be 40 years ago now. And he was paralyzed for the remainder of his life and passed away at a very young age. He was impossibly handsome and well spoken, and seemingly seemed to be a delightful human. I didn't know him personally, but you think about all of the wonderful projects, the Miami Project, which is a paralysis focused medical research organization that was founded in part by Nick Bonacani because his son was paralyzed. I don't remember his son's name. I'm sorry. But I think Nick would have been 90 by now. He may have passed on, but a wonderful cause. And I sat next to, small world syndrome. I sat next to Nick Bonacani on a flight from New York to Miami in 1990, right? So 35 plus years ago. And of course, he's a very distinguished looking gentleman, devastatingly handsome. He was still ripped. He was, high and tight. And I was working for an international consulting group at that point. So I was actually, clean shaven and without a Red Sox hat on, and may have in fact had my tie on in the right direction. And you get upgraded to first. You don't behave like you just got upgraded to first, and you certainly don't annoy superstars and be a total dick because I was, good parents, rest in peace. But just a couple Miami Dolphins related questions, NFL, Roger Goodell, and that was it. Leave the man alone. I was pretending to work. But yeah. So, anyways, I got from Neuralink to that. I would, I would, I would love to learn. I would love to put a little money on. I have to get back to the prediction markets again because there are new developments in that space that are as disturbing as anything else that's going on in the world. And of course, it involves Don Jr. But we'll do that another time. Equally upsetting and worthy of a podcast in its own right is I posted earlier today about Eric Trump. He's the not smart one, teaming up with AMD to perhaps build the killer robots that will compete for the business with Elon Musk's company. This is not Starlink. This is not SpaceX, although I think he's rolling everything into one big bowl because with the valuations and the IPO, there's some dastardly things that are going to happen. And of course, burying the lead, and I'll definitely do this on the weekend, which is Trump's sermon about the importance of backing data centers. It's our patriotic duty. And I think I posted about that early this morning. And if you look at Trump's sermon and you count eliminating duplicates, like novel lies within one Fox News statement by Donald J. Trump on one subject, I got eight, you know, verifiable, bum tickling fucking whoppers by your president. Just absurd assertions by even by a silly man, by his standards, absurdities about if you don't get on the bus, somebody else is going to get the money. It's your duty to do this. Everybody loves the idea. Your particular community is going to see vast wealth generation by putting the data center in your backyard, and all of the lies that you and I know. And because somebody was making a very good point, I was watching last night or today. I'll not a paid endorsement, but uh, Waj on the Left Hook podcast or Substack. He's on every platform, very successful content provider and real truth spitter. You know, he was talking to an esteemed professor, and the time that we are in right now is, if anybody says unprecedented one more time, then we're going to have to hurt somebody. But just you need to remind yourself of the risks. I'm getting off the watch point because I lost half. Uh, just do me a favor, do the checklist one more time. Make sure that you're all set for the weekend. I heard a little noise inside, and I think I'm going to be summoned. So I'm running my mouth, thanking everybody. We'll get together tomorrow. Kindly restack, reset, retweet, subscribe, and we'll do it all again tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time, and good Friday evening to y'all. Thank you.